Good evening. My name is Rob Lockhart, and I welcome you to tonight's broadcast from Follow Me Ministries. I'm coming to you tonight from Jabot, Romania, where I have journeyed with my dear friend and brother in Christ, Ryan Curry. And tonight, Ryan is going to join us for a conversation about this trip and other things. We arrived in Cluj this morning at 12:30, and then drove north for about 2 hours to Jabot. We had a meal prepared for us there, and then we went to bed. Today, we have primarily been acclimating ourselves to the area, and we drove around the area. It's a beautiful country with beautiful people, and I'm so excited to visit with the people over the next week. We concluded our evening tonight with a wonderful meeting with a group of youths here. We discussed discipleship, the topic they have been studying, and Ryan and I both shared a 15-minute or so lesson on discipleship. We're staying with Aline Poptelican, a Baptist pastor here in Jabot who has had a long-term relationship with members of Rose Hill Baptist Church, and his wife Bianca and their 3-month-old son Matthias. I can't thank Aline and his family enough for hosting us. Aline is the youth pastor in the Baptist Church here. It was his group that we met this evening, and I'll say much more about Aline and his work next week. And if he's willing, I'm hope to have him on my broadcast next week. But as I've already said, I have Ryan Curry with me tonight. This is Ryan's 7th visit to Jabot, and he has deep ties with many in the area. For the rest of our time tonight, I simply want to have a conversation with Ryan and talk about his ministry and missionary work in general, the nature of the work that is being done. Good evening, Ryan.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing?
Fine. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 24 years old, grew up in Ashland, Kentucky, been a member of Rose Hill Baptist Church my whole life, and that's how I got plugged in here in Romania, is through Rose Hill, and they've been coming here, I think, now for almost about 15 years. So that's my connection.
And you've been doing work here in Romania, but you've also traveled to other places as well. So talk a little bit about that.
I started going to Romania in 2010, but this year, in 2014, is the first year I decided to go some other places, and that just sort of happened. I knew some people, and they asked me to go, and God provided. And so in May, I got to go to Mumbai, India, and then in June, I got to go to Pietermaritzburg, South Africa.
Okay. And what kind of work did you do there?
Each place was different. In India, we went around and we did a lot of training for the pastors there. We also went in people's homes and shared with them about the gospel and things like this. In South Africa, though, a lot of the work was with children. And we stayed in an orphanage there. There's a ministry called Tabitha Ministries, and we were sharing Bible stories with these children, making games and just having fun with them, really, and just making connections with them.
Okay. Well, as I said, this is your 7th trip here to Romania. What about Romania attracts you? I mean, why 7 trips here when you could have maybe taken trips other places as well? But why do you keep coming back to Romania outside of just the connection there is with Rose Hill Baptist Church?
When I was growing up, I was active in my church's youth group, but I really had no interest in doing mission work. And I told people, my family, my friends, I said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in someplace close to Ashland. I don't have any interest in going abroad or to another part of America. But in 2009, God really got a hold of me, and I ended up surrendering my life to ministry. And over the course of the next year, He just began to change my heart in a lot of these areas. So I had the opportunity to go in 2010 in November with our church, and it was a very intimidating thing at first to go to another country, to another culture, and to see different things. But it's just, once I got here and I met the people and I got to do the ministry here, I fell in love with it. And so the family that we're staying with, actually, Aline and Bianca, he invited me back the next summer to work with their youth and children by myself. And so I returned. I got on a plane and came back without the team, and that established an even better connection. And so since then, I've come about twice every year since 2010.
How do you think, well, let me set this up. I've been on a few mission trips, short-term mission trips, and I've always said that I'm like everybody else. I used to think missionaries were someone who went to other places and kind of taught them and kind of fostered change in them. But what I found in my own personal experience is that with each trip that I took, I did teach and preach and would like to think that maybe had some effect, but more importantly, it transformed me. I mean, my whole outlook on life has been transformed by the experiences I've had in these short-term mission trips. Have you had something similar to that happen in your life?
Oh, exactly the same. The first time I went to Romania, I can remember trying to prepare, what am I going to teach and preach when I get there, and I was thinking about the lessons, but you're exactly right. What you learn from the people and from the experience on these mission trips, what I tell people is, I said, it's like you're getting a jump start to your spiritual battery. And, I can remember going home, and the experiences from my first trip, they just wouldn't leave my mind. I kept thinking about them. I kept thinking about the people. And really, it's hard because you go back home and you see how we live in America. You see the spiritual life of our churches, and it's just unfortunately lacking compared to a lot of other places in the world. It just seems much more real when you go to these places.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And I know that I have nothing but respect for missionaries who devote their lives to the field, and they go and they move their entire families. I have nothing but respect for that. And I know a lot of people have kind of talked about things like, why would you spend the money to go somewhere for just 2 weeks when that money could be better spent in other ways? Yeah, there are all kinds of things that could be said about that. But with regard to my own transformation, I never considered myself to be a missionary before I went on these trips, and I now see myself as a missionary. We had a sermon at Unity the other night, and our pastor spoke about there are only two kinds of people in the world. There are missionaries and those who need missionaries, and kind of goes in line with what I've been talking about pretty much every week on these radio broadcasts, that if we are a follower of Christ, we need to be about the business of telling the world. And so I came back from those trips thinking of myself as a missionary, and so I now am no longer just a teacher at Boyd County High School. I'm serving the mission field of Boyd County High School, and so I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I'm looking forward to the transformation that's going to take place in me over the course of these 2 weeks while we're here in Romania. Now you're also in seminary, and you're about to hopefully be finished with it soon, right?
Yeah. I finished my degree at Morehead State University in 2011, and towards the end of my finance degree there, God called me into ministry, and immediately I began looking at where I was going to go to school. I ended up moving to New Orleans, Louisiana for a year, and attending New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. The next year, I moved to New York City and continued my seminary online, and I just finished my third year of seminary at Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. I'll describe that as just a marathon. It's been one of the hardest things I've ever done, but looking like this December, I should graduate with my seminary degree.
Very good. And you're thinking a future more of mission-related work? Are you thinking about a church? I mean, where are you right now on that?
For several years, just my heart has been involved in mission work and missionary things, and so that's my goal, to do something on the mission field. And it's been hard because I've wondered where God will take me or what that will look like, but earlier this year I started an application with a missionary organization called the International Mission Board, and so I'm waiting right now, looking through that. I don't know where I'll end up. Eventually later this year I'll have to choose, but I'm just really excited to get to that.
Okay, very good. Well, I know that I've just been kind of anticipating what we're going to be doing these 2 weeks. Again, I've been on 3 specific mission trips myself, and we've done different things in different places. But I understand that tomorrow we're going to be doing some home visiting. And then, of course, we'll be attending church with Aline and his family tomorrow night, maybe preaching, or I don't know exactly all that. But tell us a little bit more about what I should expect over the course of this week and next week.
So what I'm told by the people in ministry here is, many times it's just how it is with us. You have people that you know very well, and sometimes you know them so well that it's hard to talk to them about spiritual things. But where me and you, Rob, we're visitors here, it's going to open doors where people see us as somebody from another country, somebody that they'd like to know about. And so these conversations and these home visits are going to open up to evangelical types of conversations. So as we go in these homes, I'm sure that we'll be visiting both people who are believers and people who are not believers. And for the believers here, we're going to be sharing a word of encouragement, telling them, many times, whether it's physical things, sickness, or maybe it's financial problems, just, keep on. You can get through this. God is going to take you through this. He's the answer. That's what we're going to be sharing with them. But, of course, with others who need to hear the gospel, who aren't saved, we're going to be sharing about Jesus Christ and what he can do for us.
And then I understand next week we're going to work with the youth camp in a region away from here. We'll talk more about that next week. But what kinds of things happen at this youth camp?
I'm really excited about the youth camp because in all the times I've come here, I think one time I got to spend one day at this particular youth camp. Typically I've helped with a children's camp. But it's just a time for these youth to get away from everything, to get away from the city and maybe get away from a lot of the people that they're normally around. And of course we're going to a secluded area, but I think it's just going to be a great time for them to hear about spiritual things. Many of these kids, maybe they've brought their friends and they don't go to church or they haven't heard the gospel. And I know that typically at this camp, several of the youth end up getting saved.
So, sounds in a way very similar to some of the camps that our young people go to in the summer. And I know I was very encouraged tonight, just in our little meeting tonight with this group of youth, anywhere from, I think that was the youngest 9th grade, we equivalent to our 9th grade, and then 3 or 4 of them were seniors in high school. But I was just very encouraged to hear where they are in their own walk with Christ. And, something else that we kind of are exposed to when you go to another country is you see the cost to some of these young people and adults even in accepting Christ. It's so against some of the cultural things in this place, and so I was very encouraged tonight when I met with those groups. And I noticed that, of course, you knew. Did you know all of them, or most? You knew most.
I knew most of them.
Okay.
I knew most of them.
Okay, and so that there must be something encouraging about being able to identify a place and return to that place and touch base with people you've met in the past and see them grow and maybe establish more long-term relationships.
Yeah, that's our experience, our church's experience, to come year after year. It's great to maintain those connections because you may meet some person this year. You may share with them about Christ or what he's done for you, but maybe it's that 3rd or that 4th trip where finally their heart is softened and they begin to hear you, and maybe they become a Christian later on.
And probably a very important lesson for any of us, no matter what our context is, about sharing the gospel. The idea that you can just walk up to somebody and say, hey, you're a sinner, you need to be saved. Well, we in some way need to establish a relationship with people, and this is just a picture of that, but it's the kind of thing that maybe we all should be doing all the time. So, well, I'm afraid we're out of time tonight, and so we'll pick up next week. Again, I hope to have Aline on, and maybe Bianca will share a little bit with us as well. But we'll kind of continue our conversation. I'll get you caught up to date on what we're doing over here. I'd like to encourage you to visit our website at www.followmeministries.net to find out more about this ministry and find ways to support its work. I also encourage you to respond to these broadcasts by submitting an online response form with your questions and comments. You can also follow us on Facebook. Search for Follow Me Ministries and click like. Again, as always, I thank you all for listening tonight. Ryan, thank you for being with me.
Yes, thank you, Rob.
So, have a blessed week.